South Africa has been rocked by a political earthquake that has left citizens stunned and the ruling African National Congress in total panic. New revelations suggest that President Cyril Ramaphosa and former President Jacob Zuma may both be linked to an ongoing corruption scheme, a scandal so explosive it threatens to tear the ANC apart from within. The party, once celebrated as the guardian of South Africa's democracy, now faces a crisis that could redefine its future and alter the nation's political landscape permanently. The magnitude of the allegations has sent shockwaves through government offices, opposition parties, civil society groups, and ordinary citizens, leaving the country in a state of anxious anticipation. Leaked reports that have just surfaced say investigators have found extensive trails of money, suspicious transactions, and offshore accounts connecting high-ranking ANC officials with Ramaphosa and Zuma's names allegedly appearing in several communications and financial correspondences. For years, South Africans have heard whispers about deep-seated corruption at the highest levels of power. But now the dots are reportedly being connected. Evidence reportedly points to a coordinated system possibly running quietly under the public radar for more than a decade, siphoning resources meant for development and welfare into private hands. Sources close to the investigation say millions of rands have been diverted through shell companies, foreign accounts, and political development funds. These funds, they say, are traced back to government projects and tenders originally designed to benefit citizens rather than line the pockets of those in power. For many South Africans, the revelations are a stunning betrayal. Ramaphosa rose to power promising to clean up the ANC after years of corruption scandals under Zuma's presidency. He portrayed himself as a reformer, a man who would restore integrity and accountability to a party tarnished by greed and self-interest. Yet, according to insiders, both leaders may have been benefiting from overlapping networks of influence, using their allies to secure protection and control of lucrative deals. One source from investigations said bluntly that while the two leaders may have feuded publicly, the money behind the scenes told an altogether different story. If the allegations bear weight, Ramaphosa's so-called New Dawn was built upon the very corruption he vowed to destroy, and the lingering influence of Zuma within the system was never truly gone. The ANC is now in its most vulnerable position in decades. Party insiders are in panic amidst reports that a confidential dossier containing names, contracts, and bank statements has already been handed over to both local and international investigators. The dossier reportedly details how certain companies secured massive government tenders in return for political loyalty, with kickbacks funneled through strategic partnerships and development initiatives. It is this scandal, analysts warn, that could finally break the ANC outright, as internal factions already blame each other for the leak and the public exposure of sensitive documents. Some senior members reportedly want Ramaphosa to step down temporarily until his name is cleared, while others say this leak could be Zuma's camp trying to destabilize Ramaphosa's presidency. The rivalry between Ramaphosa and Zuma has long been among the most heated political battles of South Africa. And this new link to corruption could reignite that conflict as never before. Zuma's supporters have begun employing the revelations for vindication, claiming he is no worse than his successor Ramaphosa. Meanwhile, Ramaphosa's allies have accused Zuma's faction of planting falsified evidence in order to manipulate public opinion. Early reports suggest, however, that some financial documents trace transactions spanning the Zuma and Ramaphosa administrations and imply the corruption network may have evolved rather than disappeared. A political commentator said, "The ANC didn't change its system. It only changed its faces," underlining a perceived reality of an intact culture of corruption within the party despite promises of reform. Public outrage has swelled since the allegations surfaced, with citizens urging in a litany of tweets that both Ramaphosa and Zuma must be subjected to a full independent investigation. There is a sense for many that after years of promises that the leaders would rebuild the nation, they have used their stations to further themselves personally and politically. As one tweet put it succinctly, the ANC is no longer fighting corruption. It's fighting to hide it. Civil society groups and opposition parties such as the Democratic Alliance and the Economic Freedom Fighters are calling for emergency parliamentary hearings, with some leaders demanding the immediate suspension of Ramaphosa pending investigations. The international implications have made the case even grimmer. Reports indicate that foreign banks and overseas financial systems might be involved with institutions from Europe and the Middle East. Local and international media note that these international channels flag suspicious transactions, drawing regulators and investigators from abroad. If confirmed, the investigation could become a multi-country operation, one that places South Africa's political elite under unprecedented global scrutiny. Experts in the law warned that when sufficient evidence is found, both Ramaphosa and Zuma might face serious criminal charges, including money laundering, abuse of office, and racketeering, depending on the degree of cooperation between prosecutors and investigative agencies. Inside the ANC, a sense of panic has emerged amid a deep-seated atmosphere of distrust. The party members were reported to be scurrying for cover, deleting incriminating documents, erasing incriminating communications, or even approaching the authorities to turn state evidence in hopes of leniency. The ANC is no longer in control of the story. A senior insider was quoted as saying, "The story is controlling the ANC." The unearthing of graft that reached all the way from a sitting president to a former president presents a turning point for the party, which has struggled for many years to keep its head above water due to factional fighting, governance failures, and widespread allegations of misconduct. For many more, the scandal confirms a long-held suspicion that corruption has no allegiance, only beneficiaries, and that the political elite are often more invested in self-preservation than the nation's welfare. In a late-night press briefing, the ANC's official spokespeople tried to reject the allegations as politically motivated and unfounded. They accused the media of trying to divide the party and destabilize the government. These denials have done nothing to temper public skepticism as South Africans demand transparency and accountability. A citizenry that is watching observes that nebulous rebuttals do not replace independent investigations or verifiable evidence. Demonstrations have erupted outside major government offices and the ANC headquarters, with people waving placards demanding that no one be above the law and officials implicated in corruption should face swift punishment. Opposition parties are using the scandal to challenge the ruling party's legitimacy by calling for motions of no confidence, emergency hearings, and forensic audits. Meanwhile, mobilization at the level of civil society continues as they demand impartial investigations to restore public trust in the shattered state institutions. The internal political dynamics of the ANC have become increasingly unstable. Allies of Ramaphosa are accusing opponents of orchestrating a coordinated attempt to oust him, while factions loyal to Zuma are reportedly celebrating the public scandal as evidence of Ramaphosa's hypocrisy. In this climate of mistrust, the party's top officials are reportedly consulting legal and political advisors, planning strategies to either survive the fallout or exploit the situation for personal gain. Analysts suggest that the ongoing infighting and public exposure of corruption networks could irreversibly damage the party's cohesion and electoral prospects, especially with the 2026 national elections looming. Should that prove true, the repercussions for the ANC could be disastrous. A party once emblematic of liberation, unity, and hope may instead be remembered for its failure to break free from a spiral of greed, secrecy, and self-interest. For political commentators, the next few weeks will be critical. The party will have to take decisive action in investigating and disciplining those implicated, or risk a full-scale implosion that will leave a vacuum in South African politics. The unfolding scandal says a lot about the fragility of trust in political leadership. The South African public, already fighting economic hardship, high unemployment, and social inequality, are now being confronted with fresh evidence that perhaps corruption does reach right into the highest offices of government. To many citizens, the sense of betrayal runs deep, with leaders promising reform accused of engaging in the very practices they condemned. The revelations again point to the dire need for oversight, independent investigative mechanisms, and open governance that can prevent the concentration of unchecked power. The nation holds its collective breath as investigators trace financial networks, monitor offshore accounts, and interview implicated officials. Questions abound: who else may be involved? How extensive is the corruption network? Can the ANC survive the storm, or is this the beginning of the party's unraveling? Decisive days and weeks lie ahead that will be crucial not only for the party but also for South Africa's democratic institutions and public confidence in government. The story has also brought into sharp focus how financial oversight has taken on an increasingly global nature and how international investigators have begun paying closer attention to cross-border transactions. Claims that illicit funds could have moved through European and Middle Eastern financial systems place South Africa in the global spotlight amid diplomatic fallout and calls for accountability from abroad. If the matter reaches the courts, it has the potential to be a test case for taking sitting and former heads of state to task for financial misconduct, increasing public scrutiny and debate. Matching that sense of betrayal among citizens is a growing demand for transparency. Social media continues to amplify outrage, with millions of South Africans sharing information, theories, and calls for action. Civil society organizations coordinate campaigns to pressure authorities into conducting impartial investigations, while opposition parties seek to leverage the scandal to loosen the ANC's grip on power. Tense and full of uncertainty, the aftermath of the revelations cuts across all levels of society. South Africa's political landscape has entered a period of unprecedented instability. The combination of allegations against sitting and former presidents, a fractured ruling party, and mounting public outrage has created a volatile situation that could redefine the future of governance in the country. As the investigation unfolds and the ANC grapples with its internal divisions, one thing is clear. The party can no longer rely on its historical legacy alone to maintain authority. Trust must be rebuilt, accountability enforced, and justice demonstrated, or the nation risks witnessing the collapse of a political institution that has dominated South African politics for more than 3 decades. The coming weeks will be critical. South Africans are watching every development, every leak, and every official statement with intense scrutiny. Analysts suggest that the fallout could result in resignations, prosecutions, and a reshaping of the ANC's leadership structure. While the party attempts to maintain relevance and cohesion, whether the ruling party emerges stronger after facing its internal demons or fractures irreparably remains to be seen. For now, the scandal dominates headlines, social discourse, and political strategy, signaling a dramatic and uncertain chapter in South Africa's political history. The country is standing at a crossroads, facing questions of accountability, justice, and the future of its political institutions. Every decision which will be made in the coming days will set a path for South Africa's governance and democracy. Each citizen, every analyst, and a range of international observers are holding their collective breath as further revelations are expected, with deepening investigations and a burgeoning web of alleged corruption. The storm has finally arrived, and South Africa has entered a period of profound uncertainty in which the result will outline not only the fate of the ANC but that of the nation itself. The story is far from over, and the world continues to watch closely as this high-stakes political drama develops.